Thanks to the determination and military expertise of Mehmed, the Ottoman Empire finally managed to conquer the ancient Byzantine capital. This victory marked the end of the Byzantine Empire and the beginning of the era of Ottoman dominance in the region. To conquer Constantinople, the Ottoman Empire undertook extensive military preparations. Mehmed II worked tirelessly to assemble a powerful army composed of infantry, cavalry, and most crucially, a cutting-edge artillery force. One of the Ottomans' major advances was the development of large siege cannons. These imposing weapons, capable of launching massive projectiles, posed a significant threat to Constantinople's legendary walls. Mehmed ordered the manufacture of gigantic cannons, some measuring up to 27 feet in length. These impressive weapons were strategically positioned around Constantinople with the intent of bombarding the city's defenses until its walls gave way. During the siege, Ottoman cannons rained down projectiles on Constantinople, causing devastating damage to its towering walls. This overwhelming artillery fire was crucial in overcoming Byzantine resistance. Despite the heroic efforts of the Byzantine defenders, the combination of Mehmed II's powerful army and his technological advances in artillery proved decisive in the fall of Constantinople. On the Byzantine side, Emperor Constantine XI personally led efforts to defend the capital of his empire. Faced with the imminent threat of the Ottomans, Constantine showed courage and determination in his attempt to save Constantinople. Constantine worked tirelessly to mobilize and prepare his forces. He ordered the strengthening of the city's imposing walls, organized defense at strategic points, and led his men in preparing for the inevitable battle. Aware of the fragility of the Byzantine position, Constantine made desperate appeals to the Christian powers of Western Europe, pleading for military and diplomatic assistance. Unfortunately, the Byzantine Empire was left to fend for itself in its moment of greatest need. Despite the overwhelming numerical and military superiority of the Ottomans, Constantine IX's men fought bravely to defend every inch of Constantinople's walls. For weeks, they resisted the fierce assaults of Mehmed II's forces. Unfortunately, Constantine's determination and military skill were not enough to overcome the power of the Ottoman invaders. When the defenses finally gave way, the emperor fought to the end, disappearing in the chaos of the final battle. One of the greatest challenges faced by the Byzantine Empire in its attempt to defend Constantinople was the fragile alliance with Western European powers. Despite Constantine IX's desperate appeals, the Byzantine Empire was left to its fate by its Christian neighbors. Western European kingdoms, immersed in their own conflicts and disputes, were reluctant to provide assistance to Constantinople. They prioritized their own interests and failed to unite in a coordinated action to rescue the Byzantine Empire. While Constantinople faced its greatest challenge, the Christian powers of Western Europe largely remained indifferent to its fate. Some even negotiated secret deals with the Ottomans, putting their commercial interests above solidarity with the Byzantine Empire. Thus, the lack of effective support from Western European powers left Constantinople defenseless against the Ottoman siege. Even in the face of the bravery of its defenders, the city could not withstand the military might of Mehmed II. When the Ottoman forces led by Mehmed II finally launched their decisive attack, Constantinople faced a relentless siege. Mehmed's infantry, cavalry, and artillery troops surrounded the city by land and sea, subjecting it to incessant bombardment. Despite the overwhelming numerical and weaponry superiority of the invaders, Constantine XI's men fought bravely to defend Constantinople's walls. For weeks, they repelled the fierce assaults of the Ottomans, showing great skill and courage in combat. The powerful Ottoman cannons and catapults unleashed devastating bombardments on the towering walls of the Byzantine capital. With each passing day, Constantinople's defenses suffered increasingly severe damage, weakening its ability to withstand the siege. Despite their heroic resistance, the Byzantines were at a numerical and technological disadvantage. As the siege dragged on, the pressure on Constantinople's defenses became increasingly unsustainable. Finally, after weeks of relentless siege, Constantinople's walls gave way. Mehmed II's forces managed to break through the defenses and invade the city, beginning a massacre and looting that marked the end of the Byzantine Empire. After weeks of brutal siege, Mehmed II's forces finally managed to breach Constantinople's legendary walls. Despite the bravery and determination of the Byzantine defenders, the immense pressure exerted by the artillery and Ottoman attacks ultimately overcame the city's resistance. At the moment of the fall, the city was invaded in a frenzy of violence. Ottoman soldiers stormed Constantinople, massacring the civilian population and looting the city in an unprecedented act of savagery. In the midst of the chaos, Emperor Constantine XI was last seen leading his men in a final desperate attempt to repel the invaders. His courage and determination to defend Constantinople to the end symbolized the spirit of resistance of the Byzantine Empire. When the battle finally ended, Constantinople lay devastated. Its most sacred buildings and temples had been looted and desecrated, its population massacred or enslaved. The capital of the Byzantine Empire, once a symbol of splendor and power, now lay in ruins. The fall of Constantinople marked the definitive end of the Byzantine Empire, one of the most enduring and influential civilizations of the Middle Ages. This traumatic event sent shockwaves throughout Christian Europe, symbolizing the collapse of one of the last bastions of Eastern Christianity. When Mehmed II's forces finally broke through Constantinople's defenses, one of the worst massacres in history began. Ottoman soldiers stormed the city in a frenzy of violence, showing no mercy to the civilian population. Men, women, and children were indiscriminately massacred in the streets. Those who did not perish were captured and enslaved by Ottoman soldiers, who sold them in the markets of the empire. The temples and palaces of the Byzantine capital were systematically looted. The wealth accumulated over centuries was stolen by the invaders, who seized works of art, precious objects, and all kinds of treasure. Constantinople, once one of the richest and brightest cities in the world, was reduced to rubble. Churches were desecrated, the city's cultural heritage was destroyed, and the local population was brutally subjugated under Ottoman rule. The looting and destruction of Constantinople traumatized Christian Europe in the Middle Ages. The fall of the ancient Byzantine capital sent shockwaves throughout the continent, deeply shaking faith and confidence in the Christian world. During the final moments of the battle for the city, Emperor Constantine XI was present on the front lines, fighting alongside his men in a desperate attempt to defend Constantinople. When the Ottoman forces finally broke through the city's walls, the Byzantine Empire reached its final moment. The chaos and violence of the invasion were overwhelming, with Mehmed II's soldiers devastating everything in their path. In the midst of this scene of destruction, Emperor Constantine XI was last seen leading his men in a final and desperate attempt to repel the invaders. But Constantine ultimately disappeared in the chaos, his fate remaining uncertain. With the fall of Constantinople, the Byzantine Empire came to its tragic end. After more than 1,000 years of existence, the civilization that had preserved the heritage of ancient Rome disappeared, giving way to the dominance of the Ottoman Empire. The fate of Emperor Constantine XI remains a mystery to this day. But his bravery and determination to defend the capital of his empire until the end symbolized the spirit of resistance of the Byzantine Empire. The fall of Constantinople marked the end of an era and the beginning of a new geopolitical order in Europe and the Mediterranean. The fall of Constantinople in 1453 had profound political and geopolitical consequences. With the conquest of the ancient Byzantine capital, the Ottoman Empire emerged as the new dominant power in the eastern Mediterranean and southeastern Europe. The Ottoman Empire consolidated its control over the territories formerly dominated by the Byzantines, extending its political and military reach further west toward Christian Europe. The fall of Constantinople was a traumatic event for medieval Christendom. The loss of the last great Christian city in the East sent shockwaves throughout Europe, raising fears about the advance of Islam and the power of the Ottomans. The conquest of Constantinople marked the end of the Byzantine Empire and ushered in a new era in European history. The decline of Eastern Christian influence was accompanied by the rise of Western powers, which would assume an increasingly prominent role on the global stage. Despite its devastating effects, the fall of Constantinople had a lasting impact on European history and culture. This symbolic event continues to exert a strong influence on our understanding of the medieval period and the transition to the modern age. The fall of Constantinople in 1453 marked a turning point in European history, symbolizing the end of the Middle Ages and the beginning of the modern age. This historical event triggered profound transformations in the European landscape. Ottoman rule over the former Byzantine capital, one of the last great Christian cities in the East, deeply shook medieval Christendom. The fall of Constantinople in 1453 was, therefore, an event of global importance, with profound political, cultural, and symbolic implications. This historical milestone continues to exert a powerful influence on our understanding of the past and its connections to the present. In the face of this new geopolitical reality, Western European powers were forced to seek new trade routes and economic opportunities, driving the development of international trade and contributing to maritime expansion. At the same time, the fall of Constantinople and contact with Eastern culture and knowledge inspired a period of intense interest and cultural flourishing in Western Europe, known as the Renaissance. Additionally, the loss of the last Byzantine stronghold weakened the influence of the Roman Catholic Church, leading to the rise of new forms of political organization with the ascent of national monarchies. Thus, the fall of Constantinople represented a key milestone in the transition from the Middle Ages to the modern era in Europe. This historical event of such magnitude continues to exert a profound influence on our understanding of European history and culture. Importance of the event for world history and its symbolic significance. The fall of Constantinople in 1453 was an event of global significance with ramifications that extended far beyond the borders of Europe. This historical moment marked the end of an era and the beginning of profound transformations that would shape the modern world. The conquest of the ancient Byzantine capital by the Ottoman Empire represented a fundamental shift in the balance of power in the Mediterranean and the Near East. The Ottoman advance westward established a new geopolitical order that would influence the centuries to come. Additionally, the fall of Constantinople carries deep symbolic significance. It represented the collapse of the last great bastion of Eastern Christianity, marking the era and the decline of Christian influence in the East. The Byzantine Empire was the direct heir to the culture and knowledge of ancient Rome. Its fall meant the loss of one of the richest and most influential civilizations in history, whose records and intellectual traditions were dispersed throughout the world. The conquest of Constantinople by the Ottomans had a profound and lasting impact on world history. This defining moment marked the beginning of a new era of expansion and confrontation between the Christian and Islamic worlds, with consequences that still resonate today. In summary, this video addressed the tragic end of the Byzantine Empire and the fall of its capital, Constantinople, in the face of the advancing Ottoman Empire in 1453. We saw the heroic efforts of Emperor Constantine XI to defend the city, as well as the fragility of the alliance between the Byzantine Empire and the Western European powers. We followed the fierce resistance of the Byzantine defenders during the Ottoman siege until the inevitable invasion and pillaging of the city. The fall of Constantinople marked the definitive end of the Byzantine Empire and the beginning of a new era in European history. This catastrophic event had profound political, economic, and cultural consequences, contributing to the transition from the Middle Ages to the modern era. At the same time, the conquest of Constantinople carries deep symbolic significance, representing the collapse of the last great Christian civilization in the East. Its legacy continues to exert a strong influence on our understanding of the past and its connection to the present. Now, we invite you to explore more about this important moment in history. What are your thoughts on the consequences of the fall of Constantinople? What other key events from this period do you consider relevant? Share your ideas and insights with us. Together, we can deepen our understanding of this crucial episode that shaped the modern world. Thank you for your attention, and we look forward to discussing more about this and other historical topics soon.